Thursday, March 17th, and this is the March meeting of the Environmental Sustainability Committee of the City of Sault Ste. Marie. I'll call this meeting to order. It's 4:01 p.m. And looking now for someone to move and second the adoption of the minutes from our last meeting of February 10th. I don't know if, thank you, Mark. No, I'm sorry. Thank you, Eric. I was looking two ways here and about to say, I feel like Andre might be having some technical difficulties. Emily, it sounded like he was maybe doing that. So could we check with him just to see if he's actually there? And I just need someone else there. Oh no. Someone else to second the adoption of the minutes from the last meeting. Could I get, I'm picking on Jamie then. Is that all right with you, dear? Thank you. All right, so we have a mover and a seconder. Any questions, additions, deletions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor of adoption of those minutes? That is carried. Thank you very much. Does anyone have a pecuniary interest to declare today from today's agenda? All right, seeing none. Moving on to adoption of today's agenda. I just noticed here for the first time, we just need to change the, because we had a meeting date change, so we just have to adjust that slightly. So someone to move and second adoption of the agenda for today. Could I see a couple hands? Anybody? Thank you, Mark. Thank you. I'm picking on Pedro now. Are you comfortable with that, Pedro, to move those minutes? Thank you very much. Or the agenda. All right. So any additions or changes to the agenda? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the agenda? That is carried. Thank you very much. All right. Moving along here. So we've got a few amazing and fantastic presentations today to hear from what's going on out in our community from a couple of different perspectives. And item 5 in our agenda, our first presentation is from Clean North. And Bill Cole, who is the chair of Clean North, will be taking us through some information about their organization and what they do. So I will this goes to, I think, Emily and Bill.
Bill, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Let's do. Now it is, of course, technical. It's not giving me my presenter view.
Well, we can see your screen, Bill.
Right.
If you would prefer for me to share your PDF, I can.
Yeah, well, I've got a few notes in the speaker notes that I wanted to try to cover. Worked okay before. Sorry about this, folks.
That's okay. Are you using two screens or just one?
No, I just have one screen.
Okay. Are you in the presenter view? Like when you started sharing your slideshow, did you make sure you selected presenter view?
Yes, I did.
Okay. If it's easier for you to stop sharing your screen and have me share your PowerPoint, and then you can see your notes, advise, and we will do that.
Okay, yes, if you don't mind, Emily, let's try that. I will stop sharing.
Okay.
And I will pop over to.
You'll just tell me when for the slides, okay?
I'll give you the cue. That's great. And
just stand by. There we go. Go ahead, Bill.
We good? Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to come talk to the Environmental Sustainability Committee. My name is Bill Cole. I'm the chair of Clean North. Joining us also on the call is David Trowbridge, who's one of our board members. Clean North was formed in 1989. We are a registered not-for-profit organization, registered with Revenue Canada. We are a grassroots organization. We have no paid staff. We're entirely funded through donations and memberships. We have a written constitution, a member-elected board of directors. We have approximately 90 members and donors, about 50 or so active volunteers who come out on an as-needed basis. We have a 5-year strategic plan written that we did a year or so ago. And we hold monthly open meetings as well as organizing and leading events around the community. Next slide, please. So the Clean North mission is to promote environmental conservation and sustainability. We do this through partnerships, public education, projects that demonstrate green practices. Our Clean North goals and values, we very much try to practice the think globally, act locally. Our focus is on Sault Ste. Marie and Algoma. We organize and lead generally small scale grassroots projects with some larger scale things that we're involved in. We're very committed to community education and outreach, trying to educate the public to be active and aware of what's going on in their environment and to be engaged with their community leaders, with the business community, with our civic leaders, and with other environmental organizations. We are all about environmental advocacy. We are really strong on youth and volunteer engagement and community partnerships. Almost everything we do, we try to engage with one or more community partners. Next slide, please. So just a few examples of some of our projects. As I mentioned, Clean North was started in 1989 by a group of environmental and community leaders who really wanted to bring a blue box recycling, a curbside blue box recycling program into Sault Ste. Marie. And that was the project that was the gem or the starting point for Clean North. Since then, we've been involved with organizing electronic waste collection and recycling. You might remember the Bring Out Your Dead events from roughly 2000 to 2007. Those were taken over, and by 2012, that project had moved over to Community Living Algoma. And from where we started, it resulted in over 100 truckloads of electronic waste being diverted from the landfill. In 2021, we partnered with the city to initiate a plastics-free pledge program. We have over 30 participants in that, and we're regularly checking in with them. Since 1990, we've run the annual Christmas tree collection, recycling, where we have people bring their Christmas trees to our depot, and then at the end of the event, we run them through a big chipper, generating mulch. We estimate that we've diverted over 100,000 trees from the landfill. And we do free mulch giveaways. Currently, we're doing 2 per year, one in the spring, one in the fall. For the last couple of years, we've been involved with Harvest Algoma and the Great Pumpkin Rescue. Harvest Algoma runs as many pumpkins as they can through their kitchen, making pies and soup to donate to the soup kitchen. And then we compost the rest, keeping that material out of the landfill. We've been involved for quite a number of years in constructing and selling rain barrels to divert household water runoff into garden and yard watering. We've been active at building and teaching people how to use worm composter kits at home and in the classroom. We've been an advocate for household compost collection, partnered with Harvest Algoma, St. Vincent Place Food Bank. Other recycle, reuse collection events coupled with our Christmas tree collection or other events, blankets for the Humane Society, books for Friends of the Library, cardboard, styrofoam, when we have a market for those materials and we can collect them and recycle them or get them to a processing facility. We have procured and sold residential composters. We've built bat houses, and we've brought in coir for sale to help with home garden composting. Lots and lots of community partners on almost all of our projects. City of Sault Ste. Marie, Harvest Algoma, the school boards, Lemieux Composting, a long list of people that we partner with who are involved in our projects. Next slide, please. So another focus of our projects is around clean air, soil, and water quality. One of our larger scale efforts is a program called Stack Watch. It has a website. The purpose of Stack Watch is at the encouragement of the provincial government, explicitly stating that they want citizens to engage in reporting pollution. Our Stack Watch group has a website where we can receive reports and pass them on to the province of emissions from, well, Algoma, the steel plant is one of our big places that we watch for events. So we're getting that off the ground and having regular communication with citizen observers where they have a place where they can report either atmospheric events or noise events. We've been active in trying to collect and disseminate information about development impacts on local watersheds. We're involved as an advocate in urban tree conservation, and you'll hear David talk at the end here of our time about management of urban trees. And we've been involved in the question of a ferrochrome smelter or not in Sault Ste. Marie. Not directly involved as a development advocate or anything, but just to try to ensure that accurate information is available to the community for them to become engaged in what's going on within our community. Next slide, please. We have a big focus on public education and outreach. We have a Clean North website. We send out an annual outreach letter to our members every year. We have a regular presence on Twitter and Facebook with social media posts with news and how-to guides. Partnership with the City of Sault Ste. Marie on the Plastics Free Pledge. We are leading an annual environmental awards program. We're partnered with Shaw on their environmental scholarships program. We have, when they were running, and we hope to get back to that next year, we've been an active partner in CD Saturday. We have run all kinds of school programs going into schools to show them how to do worm composting, to have bat house building events. When we were able to get back to having in-person events, we use our office on Queen Street and hold informal seminars on how to do things, how to worm compost, how to compost in your kitchen during the winter, how to build bat houses, how to use coir, native plants, and a number of other topics. We've been active in Earth Day, and we're participating again in Earth Day. We're coupled with the public library on their program, and we'll be doing a presentation during that event. We regularly provide media interviews on various environmental topics, offering our perspective on issues. We are engaged with our local youth. We typically, through one of our key volunteers, we typically have 4 to 6 high school co-op placements per year, working directly with us at the Clean North office and on field projects. And then we offer other opportunities for high school and community volunteers to come out and help on projects. And then we periodically bring in guest speakers on environmental and conservation topics. Next slide, please. And We have other small scale projects around town. We're very involved with community gardens. We have Clean North sponsored community gardens at Emmaus United Church, at Etienne Brule School, the People's Gardens at Algoma University, and one with the United Steelworkers on Albert Street. We have organized and continue to raise tree seedlings in a nursery bed at Emmaus and other places, and we do tree plantings. You may have noticed some trees going in at the old Sir James Dunn site, kind of near Wellington. That's a Clean North planting, and we have several others around town. We are very active with litter cleanups, generally small scale, 2 to 10 volunteers. Occasionally we get a little more complicated and have bigger ones that we clean up, like you see in the photo with the dumpster on a property up at the north end of Peoples Road. Just in 3 to 4 Clean North events last summer and fall, we collected 3,200 kilograms of material that went to the landfill that we cleaned up. We have about 35 volunteers on our litter cleanup list that I reach out to when we're organizing one. And just in the last week, we have connected with Nicholas Luck of the Downtown Association. And it looks like Clean North is going to be a formal partner in the Saturday, May 14 downtown litter cleanup event. So we're talking to Nick about that and getting some planning going. And we will likely recruit some volunteers and be a co-sponsor of that event. So we're pretty excited about that. And I'll be leading a couple of events this spring where not only I lead and organize litter cleanups, I'm going to hold a couple of workshops on how to organize litter cleanups so that people in their own neighborhoods can get their friends and neighbors together and go do a stretch of road near their house. And there's a few things that you want to look after, some health and safety and a little bit of equipment and a little bit of best practices. And so we're going to do a train the trainers type events this spring to try to get more people involved in that think globally, act locally for litter cleanups. Next slide, please. So there are a number of ways to connect with Clean North. There's lots of opportunities to volunteer or partner with us, becoming a member of Clean North, and you can find out information from our Clean North website, which is, let's see, that's cleannorth.org is our website. We held a open monthly meeting. We've been doing it by Zoom, and we're happy to share those meeting coordinates. Just have to email us and we'll get you an invitation to our meeting. We're always looking for donations, and we can be seen on various social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are very grateful for the strong partnership over more than 30 years with the City of Sault Ste. Marie, and we look forward to the ongoing collaboration with the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Thank you again for the opportunity to give you a brief overview of what we're about, and I'll be happy to entertain questions.
Thanks, Bill. That is one tremendous amount of work that you're accomplishing in our community with all of you being the group of Clean North that you're accomplishing with 100% volunteers. That's extraordinary. And thank you to you, and thank you to all those folks who donate their time and give of their time to work on those amazing projects. That's fantastic. Questions? Who's got questions about Clean North for Bill? Anybody? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Pedro.
Hi, thank you, Donna. Thank you for that presentation, Bill. It's amazing the amount of things that you do, and so needed. And my question is, if you could there's a lot of challenges at the moment, global change factors, local factors, you pointed out some of them. If you could prioritize, say, 2 or 3 things that you see as the most risk problematic to the community, which ones would you list? If you could clean 3 things, which ones would you go for first?
Hi, well, thanks, Pedro. We have a a terrific economic powerhouse in this city that's so valuable to us with the steel plant. But it comes at a cost. And we're very concerned about the exceeding the emission limits that are set by the province. And we're concerned that waivers keep being granted and deferrals keep happening. So if we could, we would really like to continue to hold the province accountable for enforcing the regulations that are on the book for emissions. We are very concerned about the potential for a ferrochrome plant coming into our community. And we will remain committed to trying to get at evidence-based discussions and share information so that we have an open and transparent process. Many of us who are active in Clean North, of course, have a biased perspective coming in, but as an organization, we will continue to follow our mandate and to try to ensure that there's transparency, accurate information, and that the community is engaged and involved and aware and holds their community leaders and the provincial and quite likely the federal folks involved, hold them accountable so that we are able to have a fair and legitimate say in what happens to our community, our environment, and our health. On a slightly smaller scale, as a volunteer organization, one of the things as we look around our monthly meetings, we don't see as much diversity in our demographic as we'd like. We would like to engage more youth, and we'd like to engage more of the community to become active in Clean North and help us and be engaged in their community at the local level.
Thank you for that. Appreciate
it. Thanks, Bill. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, hi, Bill. Thanks for that. It looks like you do a lot of work over at Clean North for sure. You know, the list of initiatives just kept popping up there. So that's amazing. Thank you. I understand you're a not-for-profit organization, and so you're often looking for funding. Have you considered the Green Initiative funds that we have here at the city? And are you looking at any projects or applications for funding that this committee would look at?
We are aware of the grant opportunity. We've discussed it, and we're certainly keeping our eyes and ears open. And hopefully in 2022 we'll have a project that matches the criteria for that. Yes.
Well, that's good. That's excellent to see. I think that would maybe help with the engagement or level of engagement to have some additional city support. And of course, these meetings are live streamed to whoever out there is viewing us now. And so a little bit of marketing for you there.
One of our board member or one of our active volunteers and our communications person, Abby Obenchain, just wrote and received a grant from I believe it was from the Invasive Species Center. And she's going to be producing some communication material, some printed literature about invasive plants that are still marketed and available and being distributed within the community, and how to replace some of those commercially available invasives with native plants, trying to encourage, even in our own backyards and in public spaces, better use of native plants and less active planting of invasives, and possibly helping control some invasive species as well. So.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions for Bill? And seeing none, thank you very much. Thank you, Bill. We're going to move on now to Clean North is bringing forward a proposal, some ideas with regards to a tree bylaw that they'd like to see be undertaken in Sault Ste. Marie. And David Trowbridge is here from Clean North to share that with us. Go ahead, David.
Good. Can you hear me, folks?
We can. Yes.
I'm all the way Montreal River Harbor, sitting on the shores of Lake Superior. So I'm a lucky man, actually.
Yes, I'm jealous. Mhm.
I've been a member of Clean North for many, many years. And often we say, what do we do? Well, when I listen to Bill, I say, we actually do a lot. One of the things that we do is related to trees. As Bill said, we grow them and we plant them and we sell them and we then chip them. But we've also been lobbying the city for many years to protect them. And usually we've had agreement from city staff and council saying it's a good idea, but really nothing much has been done. Most recently, we wrote to mayor and council promoting a tree preservation or tree protection bylaw. And I did get a response from the mayor that he said trees should not be unnecessarily cut. And a few councillors agreed as well. You will know that this was also discussed in the Share the Sioux process, which ended up producing what is part of the new official plan, something they call a scoped tree bylaw. And what they mean by that is it would regulate tree removal in just certain circumstances. Heritage neighborhoods were identified, as some of you know, the so-called slum area, Simpson, Leo, Upton, and McGregor. Sensitive areas were also going to be under the regulation, such as wetlands or significant slopes or fish and wildlife habitat. Well, Clean North is suggesting that the bylaw be expanded to ensure that healthy, mature trees throughout the city are protected. Now, a procedure is going to have to be developed for the sensitive areas and the heritage neighborhoods. So there is going to have to be some work done to put that together. And this could be expanded to the whole city. Now, as you know, because you're council regulars, that the city is promoting tree planting. We recently discussed the 2 billion tree initiative. But to not have a policy to protect existing trees seems counterproductive. How many newly planted trees does it take to equal one mature specimen? And recently, the Municipal Act directed municipalities to conduct a tree canopy evaluation. And I know that this is being planned in the Sioux. Now, I was reviewing your committee's mandate, and there's an emphasis on greenhouse gas reduction and on energy management. Well, as you know, a mature tree is an ideal carbon capture device. And interestingly, it can also have an impact on energy consumption due to the cooling effects in summer and wind deflection in the winter. There's actually an interesting app, and I've given Emily some links. The app is called iTree, and it allows you to calculate the carbon dioxide absorption and water absorption, as well as energy savings that can be estimated from various tree species based on their size and their location. It's currently developed for locations in the States, but using Sioux, Michigan, with virtually the same latitude as us, would be what we would attempt to do. Now, many smaller municipalities have already adopted tree bylaws recently, some in 2021 and some even into 2022. Peterborough, Aurelia, Newmarket. Now, Peterborough is an interesting one because they undertook a major public engagement process, and they got together city staff, members of the public, arborists, the people who take down trees, developers. And over a series of meetings, they came up with what was really a compromise bylaw, but now it has been implemented and is being followed. Aurelia is interesting, and this is particularly pertinent to the Environmental Sustainability Committee because the bylaw development was led by their Environmental Advisory Committee, which is essentially the same group as you are. Along with city staff. Newmarket, they had some challenges, and when they got their bylaw developed, unfortunately, the developers, property developers, before the bylaw was implemented, started cutting trees down at a great rate. So there are some challenges. As I mentioned, Aurelia was led by the Environmental Advisory Committee, and it's our hope that your committee might do the same. And my purpose in speaking today is to ask advice on how a more broad-based tree policy might be achieved and your support to bring it to council. I noticed in the urban design discussion summary, which is on the website associated with the Sustainability Committee, in your green space, you identify the need to practice strong forest management and tree planting to use our urban forest as a carbon sink, and also to conduct an urban tree canopy study. Well, both of these would be enhanced by a municipality-wide tree bylaw. Newmarket, I noticed they had a capital budget request submitted for a tree canopy survey, and also to develop a planting and tree care plan, tree care public education program. And Clean North could possibly provide help with the public education component, as public education is one of our mandates, as Bill pointed out. Once again, I want to thank Clean North for the opportunity to speak. This is a big issue. It is not something that happens overnight. I know with the official plan, they have some plans for a modified tree bylaw, and that can be an initial phase, and then we can look at how this can be expanded throughout the community. I'll entertain any questions. It's a big topic, but I think it's time for the Sioux to make a start. Thanks very much.
Thank you, David. So David, on behalf of Clean North, is looking for us to support this idea and move it forward in terms of a true and fulsome and robust tree bylaw or tree management bylaw. Who's got questions or anything you would like, any more information you'd like to hear from David? Go ahead, Fred.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, David, for that discussion. That's very informative. I think that this fits quite well with one of the proposed concepts that was put forward at this committee, and I don't know if it's something on the agenda. I don't recall the agenda. It's a few days since I read over it, but if it was something that we were looking at, I know we had voted on sort of prioritizing the urban tree planting and monitoring program, and it seems to fit quite well with that. Emily, is that on the agenda for today's discussion? So I think that this is quite aligned with it.
Right. So there was, thanks, Fred, for bringing that up. There was a initiative where we had 10 project ideas that were brought forward by committee members. And we did go ahead and have committee members rank those. That proposed project was not in the top 3 that we're going to be prioritizing, but just because it wasn't, doesn't mean that we have to not focus on it. So there's a lot of initiatives that are underway, and I'm happy to bring those up at another committee meeting to talk about. But yes, it does align with some things and ideas and funding and projects that we have in the hopper that I'll talk about a little bit more in my staff update.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else with questions for David? Could I get a sense from everyone about your positivity towards moving this forward, or being supportive of what David is asking us to consider?
You want like a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways kind of
well,
thing?
I'm just looking. I'm looking to see if we can come out of this potentially with some type of a resolution or an agreement or consensus or whatever that we do want to see something in it, in addition to what's currently in draft form, which is the scoping bylaw in the new official plan. How do you feel about what the ideas that David is talking about, and do you want to see this worked on and go forward? Is it something you think is important? I'm seeing some nodding. I'm seeing Eric. I am seeing, Pedro. I'm not hearing. Mark, how are you feeling? Are you comfortable with us carrying this forward? Fred, happy? Okay, I'm seeing thumbs. I like upward facing thumbs. Very good, very good. All right. So, yes.
Sorry, it's me, Pedro. Just very quickly, I have a quick question for to ask David. A lot of what you talked about pertains to public land in the city. And I'm wondering, what's your insight regarding, considering that a lot of the land is private land, how do you see policies or work done with the private sector and individual property owners to encourage, stimulate planting of trees throughout the city?
Well, first, let me mention that the main purpose of the project would be to maintain existing trees. And I mean, everyone knows the grandeur of a spreading maple. And right now, I look out my window at one, and under no control, this person could cut it down and it would be gone. And all of the positive benefits that it is providing, the carbon dioxide absorption, the oxygen generation are gone, and there currently are no repercussions in this city. So the approach would be to try and come to some kind of a resolution. I know it's been controversial. People have strong concepts of property rights, but on the other hand, many of these trees were planted well before we came along. They belong to the city, and they belong to the space that is our communal property. And to assume property ownership is for something that is actually generating oxygen for our own consumption. It just seems that we need to overlook those property rights issues and consider it as a communal good. So I don't know whether I really answered your question or not, but you know, the interesting thing, and I've been looking into this for a while. It was Toronto's had a bylaw for a long while, Ottawa, but only recently, as I mentioned, the smaller communities. The Newmarket, the Newmarket one shows up as a draft, so it's just in process. Peterborough has been passed, so it's really happening currently. As your staff will know, they've got a requirement to look at tree canopies. That there's a municipal directive. So as you do that, you'll see what percentage you have. Most municipalities are looking for around 35%. Be curious to know what we have. We certainly, in the area I mentioned, the Simpson area, would have that. But ironically, who is cutting trees down mostly? The city has to for sewer upgrades, and that's what's happened in that area, as you likely know. So I'm not sure I answered your question, but I am a little passionate about this. But you know, I've been working on this for a long while, but now with the combination of the factors, I think the time is right, and it's not an easy process. It had a number of meetings in Peterborough, community meetings, and then they had to go back and re-scope it again. But they have produced an interesting 60-plus page report that itemizes their challenges, and in fact, it allows the opportunity to expedite a bylaw in a city like Sault Ste. Marie, because they've gone down a similar path. So anyway, I'm not sure I answered your question, but
thank you. You did very well, and it puts this on the committee's radar. So thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Emily, I think you may have had a chance to pen something that we might be able to float here, that we could ask for a mover and a seconder for this idea. Could you read that?
Yep. Just let me pull it up here. Okay, so the proposed resolution that we have with regards to the tree bylaw is be it resolved that the Environmental Sustainability Committee requests that staff determine the steps required to implement a tree bylaw in Sault Ste. Marie.
Okay, that is very succinct and clear. Would anybody care to, could I have someone that would move that motion, please, and someone to second? Thank you, Pedro. Could I see someone who would second that?
Donna, can we just be clear on one thing before we second this? So would this apply on municipal, like property, like non-private property bylaw? This is what we're looking at, or are we looking at a combination of both private and public? Yeah, Emily's nodding.
I think it would be like, because the scope of this is like, what's it going to take to make this come to action? So it would look at everything. It's not specific to one. Maybe it would ultimately have to be, but it would look at both public and private.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay, so do I have someone who would be willing to second that motion? Thank you, Jamie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving that resolution? 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. And I'm assuming Fred has his hand up, and I saw Bhavna was in favor as well. So that's wonderful. Okay, thank you, Fred. Thank you.
I'm just switching to phone as I've got to go to get my son from daycare urgently.
It's okay. It's okay. We're
Okay,
grateful.
thanks.
We're grateful for your attendance in whatever way you can manage it. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much to both of you. Thank you, Bill, and thank you, David. We're moving on now to the next item on our agenda, which is we're taking time each meeting to ask our members of our committee and spotlight them and what they do on a day-to-day basis and how they work within their own companies or organizations on environmental sustainability. And today we're going to hear from Mark Britton from the PUC, and also joining us from the Public Utilities Commission is Jairus Patterson. So Mark, take it away.
Thank you. So I will start to share my screen and hopefully not mess this up too bad. So okay, so I'm assuming everybody can see that. Somebody, I'm sure, will show. Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up. This is good. So I will dive right into this. So obviously, Mark Britton from PUC Services, do conservation and demand management, working also in business development for the PUC Services, and part of our corporate strategic initiatives and what we are working on. Obviously, we're supporting, the tagline of supporting our community through innovation, and hopefully this presentation we can go through some of that stuff that I'm working on, and then some of the other initiatives that we are working on through PUC. So just a bit of information for people who don't know, or clarification, and I always get the old you're just the PUC, and that's kind of what everyone knows us as. Just a bit of information about how we're set up and structured. It's been over 100 years of service. We do employ 220 people in the community. As a corporate structure or the larger PUC, we do serve quite a few municipalities outside Sault Ste. Marie on the water side and wastewater side of things. And then we do, Jairus is here, so he's keeping track of the things that I'm making sure that I'm doing things right here to explain to people the corporate structure and let everyone know, the PUC Services and who we're owned by and how that works. So moving on, a little bit more about, I guess, what everyone sees PUC Services as, or specifically to the Sault Ste. Marie community. So PUC distribution is essentially the lines and the wires, the hydro and the delivery of the hydro throughout the community. And Public Utilities Commission is the water side of things. So all the water that everyone turns their taps on and sees come out as comes from PUC Commission. Obviously, there's a bit of stats on here. Emily only gives me 10 minutes, so I'm trying to get through it all in time. So just to kind of go through a highlight of some of our activities that we're working on from a high level, we can go through each, and I'll go through each one. Just a lot of the current projects and things that we're working on through the PUC Services. So the first one, so we talk about EV vehicles. So we have been looking at electrifying our fleet for some time now. Obviously, the market and availability has always been an issue. So we look at replacing our light passenger vehicle, light duty vehicles with electric vehicles as they become available. We can bring them in and evaluate and make sure they work for our staff and what they're doing. So we are doing some significant purchases, I guess, in the next couple of months, and we're starting to see some of the SUVs come in and deploying them into our fleet, and working with obviously the people who are going to be using them every day, to ensure that they are meeting the needs that we need. We do have 2 Volkswagen e-Golfs that are currently in our fleet that get used. One of them by one of the engineering staff that goes out and does on-site visits and things like that. And then the other one is kind of used as a pool vehicle. I've used it. I know Jairus uses it when he goes to different customers throughout the city too. So we do currently have the 2 EVs, and we're looking at growing that this year. Typically, I'm looking at 10 to 15 of them within the next year. So obviously that's a large number to bring into our fleet. Stating that, when we bring in the EV vehicles, we're looking at chargers. So we are looking at putting 22 of them through the ZVIP, or the Zero Emissions Vehicle Investment Program, through the federal government. So we are installing 22 of them in our main location on 500 Second Line, and then the water treatment plants out within the city, so that all staff that are using fleet vehicles have access to these chargers within the city. Here's the 2 that we installed for the Volkswagen Golf. Right now, they are just what they call dumb chargers, but I installed these about 2 years ago. So we have spent the last couple of years watching the market, investigating what type of chargers are out there, and what's going on in the market and how it's moving forward. So that way, when customers call, businesses, residential customers call us, we can support and pass that information along to people so that they're making informed and choices. Why we wish to be involved in a lot of this stuff, because this significantly affects our grid. When we look at the adoption and the uptake of electric vehicles, we need to be aware of who and where are installing them, because there's significant loads that can happen on our grid once customers, more than one residential customer, starts charging all at the same time. And obviously we want to ensure reliability and uptime on the grid, and things that have significant impacts on the grid, we need to be aware of, and to ensure that we're meeting those demands for people. So this is a lot of the reason why we are supporting and trying to move forward with the adoption of electric vehicles and the chargers. If I'm going too fast, let me know. Trying to keep in the timeline here. So some of the next other things that we're working on, obviously, I think most, or if not everybody has heard of the Smart Grid project. It's been ongoing for a little while now. We're getting close to starting to some of the actual construction and installation. So we try and explain this. So the Smart Grid, it's a system of systems. So it really has to do with the distribution into the grid. So when we talk to customers, as a residential homeowner sitting in your home, we would consider you behind the meter. So everything that comes to the meter, we look after, and then everything behind or after the meter is in your residential home. So we look at improving our grid and our system to get you to the hydro, to the meter. The Smart Grid itself is that improvements in the infrastructure and the grid awareness and grid knowledge, so that if in the event of outages and things like that, we can pinpoint and reduce the affected people in that outage to a certain area, and then we know how to go in and quickly fix it, and then bring everyone back online. in a smart and safe manner. So the smart grid is essentially doing that. And so when we talk about, one of the few sticking points is, where's the energy savings and the GHG savings? So a lot of that is to do with the voltage regulation across the grid and, old, decades old standards for delivery of hydro, the voltage, there was a large bandwidth. So if you were allowed to deliver the voltage in a very large, I guess, plus minus, it did make for an inefficient grid, because if it was a low voltage situation, you obviously had to pump more power in to meet the needs, which obviously uses more hydro and more generation. So the greater you fine tune that, the greater that you make that gap narrow and provide a consistent, better supply of hydro to the end user, the more efficient the grid becomes, and obviously then the less generation is needed. And that's where you're seeing a lot of those savings come from projects like the smart grid. And it also helps customers as we move into customers who rely on the more digital or sensitive equipment, providing a consistent and stable voltage to those businesses, have a less disruptive effect inside the building and on that equipment too. So a lot of the benefits that we're actually producing on the grid side of things with the smart grid are to benefit the customer and our delivery of hydro to that customer. So the next project, I'm hoping everyone's seen. So you see, it was announced with the hospital, the customer energy management system through the hospital, and it was announced there was significant hydro and GHG reduction savings by installing the battery systems at the hospital to help manage and reduce the hydro bills for the hospital. So this system itself, I guess what I would describe it as almost a UPS or a capacitor in the sense, so that when it's in line or on the grid, it helps the customers manage their hydro bills in terms of it's delivering, power, so you're not paying on peak rates, and it's kind of reducing that large bell curve to a more flat curve, and then that's how they're saving hydro. So in terms of your reduction in GHGs during the middle of the day, times like now, there's actually an app that you can go on and see called Grid Watch, and you can see that at current times, the gas generation right now within the province, is about 1,400 megawatts. It gets up to about 4,000 megawatts of gas generation, which significantly contributes to the carbon emissions in the province. So when you talk about battery storage and things like that, if you're reducing your reliance on times of peak production of gas plants, you're reducing your carbon footprint for your facility and things like that. And then also that time you're reducing your peak demand charges and peak to demand times, which also helps you with reducing hydro bills. So this customer energy management system is essentially built for that, to help with those things. So the next one, and I think just recently announced, you're starting to see the PUC transmission with in association, obviously, with the construction, the significant construction and the changeover to the electric arc furnaces at the plant. You're starting to see now, well, how do we deliver that power? How do we get that power from the grid to the plant in a safe and efficient manner? So when we look at things like this, it's more of it's a much different scale than, say, what's coming to your residential homes or some of the small businesses. So you start to get into a larger transmission type project, and that's what we're seeing. So I don't know how many people went to the open house the other day at Algoma, and they had their nice presentation of how things were going to lay out. And then they had a little box there with their station where the power was going to come in and feed the furnaces. So this is kind of I guess the next step up from that. You see the little, I would say the drawing isn't the most accurate, so let's not take it with a bit of grain of salt. But so we will get the power to that station, and this is showing, how we go from the third line station of Hydro 1, where the larger transmission lines that are coming in from provincial sources to the Sault Ste. Marie area, and then going from that to the plant to deliver the required power for them. So PUC Transmission is that company that is going to look after that and manage that and support that conversion to the electric arc furnaces at the plant. So the next one, we go from the water or electricity side to the water side. So Watertight is a company that we identified and built to support the transmission and the installation or the renewal of water delivery systems in the city. So not only the city, but cities outside, because when you get into older cities that have been established and around for a long time, you see a lot of the drinking water systems on iron pipes, the cast iron pipes and things like that are failing, and you're having to do major construction projects to pull up the entire roads and replace them, and it's significant. It's significant work and significant construction time. So Watertight is a company that will come in, and they can actually reline the pipes themselves to provide structure and support, and not having to dig up entire roads. And that will go in and support or lengthen or make the time longer that before you have to actually rip up the roads and replace the piping with something else. So that is, we've done some in Sault Ste. Marie. We've seen a few projects being done in Sault Ste. Marie, but we're also doing them, outside in other locations in the province, and going in and doing, I'm sorry, I don't know all the numbers off the top of my head, but there's significant amount of kilometers that we've already done with this solution, and with significant reduction in timing to rip up the roads, and obviously with materials and things like that. So getting a little more, I guess, in close to home about our buildings. So as a company, we look to reduce our hydro bills and to do energy conservation. So internally, we do, a lot of the standard lighting projects. We do the street lights. Obviously, we've converted all to LEDs. We did grow cap last year, replaced all the lights around grow cap with LEDs. And then some things that a lot of people don't see is you start to get into pump houses and things like that within the city, that we've gone in and changed motors out with more efficient motors, put in VFDs, and starting to get finer tuned controls of things to support that, so the systems in themselves that are delivering the hydro and the water are running more efficiently. So you're starting to see those things happen. And then when we start to now look at renovating buildings, and when you look out and see the pump houses or the substations, and we have to fix them or renovate them, we're looking at that in terms of how can we reduce the energy, and then how can we have a next to zero, as much as we can get to zero carbon footprint on those buildings, instead of just switching to gas, which is the easy thing to do. Can we have that more efficient with a zero footprint, carbon footprint type of scenario for a retrofit program? So we do look at that internally, and we work towards those types of goals. So, and that's it. I hope I didn't take up too much time or go too fast. I am more than happy to answer any questions that people would have.
Thank you, Mark. That's good to be, I mean, your company and all of you that are there, you're working on some amazing things. That innovation piece is very important to Sault Ste. Marie. Questions for Mark? Oh, Travis.
Sorry. Mark, just a question for you that I think is particularly relevant for this committee and for the city ourselves as we advance our active transportation plan. But I'm curious to know, I used to work for utilities, but gas utilities, and oftentimes when we would create right-of-ways, we would put active transportation paths under the utility corridors, whether it's just crushed gravel or what have you. And I'm wondering, whether or not as you advance plans for the new transmission line, whether there'd be an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. I think we're still, from the transmission perspective, there's still a lot of regulatory and government hurdles that we're going through right now. And once we start to get a little, Jairus is on the meeting too. I know he's got an open house plan. So there is going to be a lot of open house community, not only residential, but business consultation about, input onto what we're doing, and, to bring up some of these types of questions or ideas to say, why don't we do this, or can we do these types of things? So I think it's valid. It's a very valid point. And I think we can definitely take that back and bring it up internally to say, either we'll come back and talk to you about it, or it's something we can definitely look at. So.
Great, thank you.
That's that's a cool idea. And I'm glad you're open to it, Mark. That's fantastic. Anybody else with questions for Mark? Looking around my screen here, hoping that soon I'll be able to look around a table and not a screen. Okay, so
Nobody, come on.
I've
prepared for questions.
You got it all in, Mark. Good job.
Okay, I'll ask one, Mark. Like,
Okay.
what does your day-to-day look like?
Oh, interesting.
So I was going to joke the first question off is obviously answering text from Emily, but we always like to bug each other about this stuff. So it's a lot of kind of, I guess, dealing with the projects that I'm working on. So obviously the EV chargers right now is kind of at the forefront of things, investigating with different suppliers about that. So a lot of that, and then mixed with answering questions and calls from customers. We do get a lot of public questions and where things are going and how we're doing stuff. I hate to admit some of the amount of hours I spend in meetings some days. It's probably far too much, but a lot of that, it's a lot of research, project planning, management of the projects that are going on that we're currently doing. When we talk about EV vehicles, about purchasing and talking with suppliers, different suppliers about how we can get that incorporated into our fleet, because obviously we can't just bring a passenger vehicle in and stuff 100 pounds worth of engineering equipment in a vehicle and hope like heck that if something does happen, it's not going to hurt anybody. So there's a lot of that planning and project management type of stuff that goes on. So it's a lot of I would say it's a lot of jumping around some days.
As a follow-up question, when you're building these business cases, I'm curious how much weighting, if any, goes into carbon pricing or like environmental ESG considerations. Like, is that considered in terms of the payback? Is there an internal value on these things?
Yeah, it's so I would almost say there's two very different hats there in terms of depending on what I'm doing. So some of it is so when we look at, you know, say the electric vehicles and the chargers and stuff like that, there's a significant impact on, you know, our carbon footprint and you know, what impacts that we will have on the community and things like that. So a lot of that we do weigh heavily on. And then obviously, as if we look at it from a PUC distribution, so the electrical company side of things, a significant portion also has to go towards, are we providing value for the city? So the customers who are paying hydro bills, who are, you know, looking at this saying, well, you know, where's my money going towards? So we do weigh that heavily too on a lot of things. That's, you know, the projects and things like that I'm working on too, is that I'm getting, you know, the best value for the money that I'm spending. That's obviously coming from, you know, yourself as somebody who pays hydro and demands I wouldn't say demand, sometimes people demand, but ask these questions about, you know, are you diligently spending money that, you know, we're putting towards it? So I always say I don't just go out and buy the most expensive thing because it looks the coolest or whatever. It's, you know, there is a lot of thought and planning that goes into a lot of this stuff to ensure that, yes, that we're taking those things into consideration. So sorry if does that help, or did I?
Yeah, it helps. Thank you.
Excuse me. Any other questions for Mark? All right. Thank you, Mark. That was awesome. Oh my goodness. Moving along, we are at item 8, which is our Environmental Sustainability Committee 2022 project priorities. And I believe Emily is going to take us through this part of the agenda.
Yes, I am. Okay, so as I had mentioned earlier, we went through an exercise. We shared a survey at the end of 2021 where we asked committee members to take the opportunity to highlight a series of projects that they thought would be a great idea that the committee could get behind and champion, and see if we could, you know, try to create some more engagement on the part of the committee, but really get behind a couple of key initiatives within the community this year. So 10 projects were submitted. We discussed them at the last meeting, and then a ranking exercise took place. So the projects that I have on the screen here are the top 3 projects that were scored. I will say again, just because a project hasn't been scored highly doesn't mean we can't consider it. And I will remind the committee again that if you have ideas for projects, etc., please email me and we can add them on to another agenda. But for these, we're going to focus on these 3 projects to see if we can get behind them. So I'm going to quickly go through them and talk a little bit about some things that are actually underway to help build up that momentum. And then on the next slide and the next part of this meeting, we're going to talk about how can we move forward on implementation. So the first project that was scored of the top 3 that was the highest was to start an annual active transportation commute survey and campaign to better determine and promote uptake year round. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight about this is in our greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan, we actually outlined commuting patterns that are available from data across Canada from the Canadian Municipal Barometer. And according to this data, 90% of commuters in Sault Ste. Marie use a vehicle, 5% use the bus, 4% walk, and 1% cycle. I hope I have those numbers right. And obviously there's room to grow this. So we have a lot of information that's available about that already. It doesn't mean that there could be room for more, like doing a survey, but I think we're actually at the point where we could really move forward with a project or an action that encourages more uptake. One of the projects that I was working on before the pandemic hit was actually organizing a bike to work week initiative through the national platform the Commuter Challenge. And this is a platform where municipalities, groups can sign up, log in, and we can actually have participants track their active transportation methods throughout that time. And at the end of it, we'll be able to get an estimate on the emissions that were reduced. So we'll have something tangible to speak to. So that's possibly something that we could, revisit as we try to move forward with this initiative. Second initiative is to hire an artist to paint selected street stormwater gutters with a drawing saying the St. Mary's River, for example, or the ocean starts here. So the idea would really be for education and prevention of pollution and waste, with a focus on public outreach and education. What's nice about this project, again, is that it aligns with work that's already underway by the city from the Canada Water Agency bid, trying to bring that group here, but also with, some of Roberta Bondar's ideas about art and science. Now, the city does have plans with the Algoma District School Board, and we're trying to iron this out to try and deliver the Yellowfish Road program through Trout Canada, where youth go and paint on catch basins the words rainwater only. So this is possible that we as a committee could get behind that, support it, or maybe grow it. The third project that was identified as a top priority was to add a pillar to the Green Initiatives Fund that allows project applications that encourage healthy and resilient ecosystems. So as you know, this fund was only launched last year. 3 pillars include energy efficiency, GHG reduction, and water quality and rehabilitation. Obviously, regreening projects could fall very closely under all 3 of those, but in my discussions with the communities as well, I've heard, and obviously it was suggested that the committee as well, there's interest in a lot of these types of initiatives. So how we could consider going about this would be taking a look at our terms of reference, reviewing them, and adding a 4th pillar to the program. Again, this is just a suggestion. So with that explanation in mind, we've selected those top 3, and I'd like to hear thoughts about how we could move forward on implementation. I had mentioned at the last meeting, and something that other committees of council have done is creating a working group which is comprised of 3 staff and 2 committee members who would kind of get together and do a bit of a huddle for what they're doing, and then we would report back to the greater committee at our monthly meetings. And then there's also the proposal of taking these project ideas, and when I'm doing my outreach, and I invite committee members to do the same. So thank you, Jamie, earlier for putting a plug for the Green Initiatives Fund. We've got some project ideas now that we'd like to get behind, and we could consider spreading the word on that. So we do have some interest already from committee members to form that working group. So Donna, I don't know if you want to jump in on that, or also open it up to the committee for any other ideas on how we could move forward with this.
Yeah, I think the working group idea is important, and I know that we have had a couple of our committee members that in reading or have indicated that they're interested in becoming part of that working group. And then other ideas that people have about how to turn these ideas into action. I believe it was Pedro and Eric who are willing to work with the staff to have this moving along.
Great. Perfect. So what I'd like to propose then is a resolution for that. And again, these groups, they'll meet on the side. They meet a little bit more regularly than this committee, and they would report back with an update, but it does not dismiss anybody else from providing ideas or support. It's just a nice way to see things move a little bit faster than just a monthly meeting. So I don't know, Donna, if we want to get any more ideas, or I can go ahead and read the proposed wording for the resolution.
Let's see if anybody has anything they'd like to share right now. Any other thought or any thoughts here about anything we're missing or anything else we should be doing from anyone? I can only see 3 or 4 of you right now because the screen is.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. So thoughts here, everyone? Additional thoughts? I'm not seeing any additional thoughts, Em. So do you want to read the motion that you had put together?
Yep. All right. So be it resolved that the Environmental Sustainability Committee recommends that a working group comprised of 3 city staff, including Tom Vare or delegate, Travis Anderson and Emily Cormier, with 2 Environmental Sustainability Committee representatives, including Eric Emelson and Pedro Antunes, be formed to champion the implementation of the top 3 project priorities selected by the Environmental Sustainability Committee, including starting an annual active transportation commute survey campaign to better determine and promote uptake year-round, hire an artist to paint selected street storm water gutters with a drawing saying the St. Mary's River or the ocean starts here, and adding a pillar to the Green Initiatives Fund that allows for project applications that encourage healthy and resilient ecosystems, including habitat restoration, and that the working group be required to report to the ESC on a monthly basis with project implementation updates.
Okay. So anyone who would care to move that motion? Looking for anyone. There's only a few of us here. Oh, thank you, Jamie. Yes, you've pulled through. I get the sense that Pedro and Eric are sitting back just for obvious reasons, but all right. So Jamie has moved this. Could I call on either Bhavna or Andre or Mark potentially to feel confident? Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Okay. So questions, discussion, anything you want to ask about or talk about relevant to this idea? No? Okay, I do have one thing. Emily, could we, you've made it very clear that just because an item didn't make it, wasn't selected as one of the top 3, it doesn't mean it. Could we talk a little bit more about how we might, like what the committee members could potentially do to help move, another idea along, or could we revisit this, in a few months and move other ideas forward if we've got this? What are you thinking we could do?
Right. So one of the things that we're trying to do with the Environmental Sustainability Committee is provide updates on what the city is doing, but also what different community organizations are doing. It was really great to see, for example, with Clean North. But I work on a variety of different initiatives with some of the members on this committee. Mark mentioned we communicate very regularly when it comes to, potential business development projects or energy initiatives. I also work with some of the other members on this committee one-on-one. So if there's a project that was identified that isn't necessarily in the top 3 priorities, I encourage that committee member to reach out to me. This committee is not the only platform where we can, talk about these things. It's a great platform to bring back as a summary of some projects that the city is involved in. So if your organization is interested in working or partnering with the city from an environmental sustainability standpoint, I encourage you to reach out, or if you have a really great project idea, please reach out to me and we'll see where we can go from there.
Okay, super. Okay, anything further before we ask for a vote on this? I'm not seeing anything. So all in favor of approving this resolution on moving these ideas forward? I see. Everybody. All right, that is carried. Thank you.
Sorry, can I didn't want to be part of the, I didn't want to add it part of the resolution or anything. I guess I was just going to wait till afterwards and say something, but
go ahead, Mark, go ahead.
Talk about these projects, because I do spend a lot of time on energy and different sources. To me, I was really interested in the biomass and, learning more about how that, I spent a lot of it when I worked at the University of Guelph. We spent a lot of time on biomass and working with different companies on biomass. So I don't know how, I don't know how we bring that forward. Is that an idea, or do we can look at it? You know, because you know it's again it's part of the portfolio that I'd be interested in looking at, since we do. I mean, we have a lot of battery, we have a lot of solar and other things in the city. You know, to adding something like that, looking at, you know, how we could add that is also interesting to me too. So I understand that maybe it's not a 1 year, you know, it can be done under a year. It's probably going to take a long time. But I think it's still an interesting topic of discussion.
Yep. Absolutely, Mark. So what I've done is I've made a note of your interest in this. It's also actually part of the city's greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan to look into things such as renewable energy as well. So I'm in discussion with stakeholders within the community about this. It's ongoing. So I'll loop you into those conversations as well, because of your interest. And as we move forward on anything with regards to this, we will report back to the committee.
Does that sound good, Mark? Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay. I think the rest of the agenda is yours. So please carry on.
Okay. All right. So just going into the staff update now. Couple of things just to share with the committee. First being the single-use plastics ban. Last year, City Council passed a resolution directing staff to undertake what is required to put a ban in place in Sault Ste. Marie. So I'm pleased to inform you that the community consultations for that will be starting soon. So please keep your eyes and ears open for that. I'd also like to say that this work does align very much with the Government of Canada's proposed single-use plastics prohibition regulations, which recently closed for comment regarding different categories of single-use plastic items, regarding rules on that would prohibit or restrict their manufacture, import, and sale in Canada. So there's a lot of work underway for this, and I actually recently read about a resolution at the United Nations regarding single-use plastics as well. So the timing and momentum for this couldn't be better. So I just wanted to provide a quick update on that. Another item that I wanted to bring to the attention of the committee is about a great program that is expanding to Sault Ste. Marie. It's called Green Economy North. So just a bit of context for you. There is a nonprofit based out of Sudbury called Rethink Green, and they provide services and support to businesses, households, and communities across Northeastern Ontario. And they run a program called Green Economy North, which was founded in 2016, and it works with those groups to reduce their carbon emissions over the years through a membership-based program. This includes different initiatives such as carbon measurement and reporting, energy auditing, and action planning through a 4-milestone framework. They have received funding this year to expand their efforts across Northeastern Ontario. It was traditionally just centered into Sudbury. And they have opened this up for organizations, including Sault Ste. Marie. So this is going to take a cohort model. Their first cohort for registration is closing at the end of the month, and they plan to launch a second cohort in the fall. What's really great about this program is, it helps businesses and organizations go through the steps of creating a plan, but they also have a small micro grant component that can help with linking the businesses to help finding funding for the implementation costs after they develop these action plans. So this is really great to see. They've reached out to the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and we're actually working with them to learn more about the program, as well as to hopefully host an information session soon. We've shared this information with the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Association. So I just thought it would be great to share it with the committee. So if in your wanderings or whatnot, and you're talking to other businesses, have them reach out to me if they'd like to set up a consultation with Rethink Green. It's great to see a program like this expanding into our community. Just a couple of other quick highlights that I wanted to share with the committee. Some of the things that we've been working on this over the past couple of months. There's my notes. So we worked with the Sault Ste. Marie Conservation Authority with an application to Intact Insurance Municipal Climate Action Fund. And we have submitted this for funding to conduct a hydrology, flood inundation study and topographic survey of the Bennett West Davignon Diversion Channel and Central Creek flood control channels. Also, I wanted to take a moment to highlight that the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center is looking to launch a youth-targeted challenge with the topic of climate change. They're in the preliminary planning stages of this, but they are hoping to get any thoughts and recommendations from the community on how we might be able to encourage climate change awareness within youth. And because youth will be engaging into this topic, they believe that it will really be more of a bringing awareness to climate change at this point in time. So I wanted to share this with committee members in case this is something that you might be interested in providing some insight in. You can reach out to me and I can get you in contact with the folks at the Innovation Center. The city has also submitted an application to Natural Resources Canada $2 billion tree program for a capacity building project. So again, that funding is still unknown at this point. I've also been doing quite a bit of outreach for the Green Initiatives Fund, and I'm hoping that we will start to see some applications trickle in soon with regards to that for your review. And this has been part of quite a robust sustainability outreach strategy on my part this year. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I've been, reaching out to a lot of different organizations across the community to highlight some of the projects that the city is working on, our fund that's available, and some of the efforts underway. One that I'll highlight very quickly is we were actually part of a panel at the Together 2022 conference, which is Canada's Sustainable Development Goal Conference, where we talked about the voluntary local review of our official plan backgrounder document that is being conducted through the City Studio Initiative by some students at Algoma University. I'd also like to highlight that next Tuesday is World Water Day, and there will be a community presentation that takes place. And this is in the evening. So if anyone would like to register, it's virtual. It's binational. We've got speakers there from the Lake Superior State University Center for Freshwater Research, as well as the Invasive Species Center here in Sault Ste. Marie and Batchewana First Nation, talking about water, climate change, microplastics, etc. So I think this will be a great initiative to highlight. The last thing I wanted to bring forward very briefly, and I won't go into too many details because I know we're down to 1 minute here, is late last month, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change submitted their Impact, Adaptation, and Vulnerability Report, which again reiterated how human-induced climate change is causing dangerous and widespread disruption in nature, and how ambitious accelerated action is really required to make the changes and deep cuts in greenhouse gas emissions, and how adequate finance and political support for these projects is absolutely essential. So I've got a link to the press release and the full report here, but it further reiterates the importance of the type of work that we're trying to do with this committee, as well as at the City of Sault Ste. Marie. And last but not least, I wanted to say thank you to the committee members for their sharing their resources, quite a few this month. I've put a green box around some that were shared that really focus on different funding platforms that could be used for different projects, different strategies, such as renewable energy, including biomass, for example. So those were shared as well. So I encourage you all to check those out. I encourage anyone watching to check them out. Lots of great things happening, lots of great resources. And last but not least, thank you to the PUC, thank you to Clean North for our very first Spotlight speaker event. I think it went very well. It's great to see what's going on in our community and to learn about it. Lots of great things being done on the environmental sustainability side. Next month, our speakers will be Eric Emelson from Natural Resources Canada, as well as Pedro Antunes from Algoma University. We're trying to play catch up here on our speakers, so it's another double whammy. That's it on my end. I know it's kind of rushed, but we're at 5:30 and we did it.
Question. Wow, there's a lot. I love how our shared resources list it's growing. I mean, there's just so much there for any of us to sink our teeth into. That's coming along, and there's obviously a lot happening. Emily, you're doing a lot of work, talking about the fund and reaching out to stakeholders and looking for partnerships and all of that. Questions or comments or other ideas in terms of what Emily was sharing with us in that last 10 minutes or so that you want to ask her? I think everybody wants to, maybe now that you've been filled with all these great ideas and you're going to just sit back and mull over what are some of the more great things we can do and maybe enjoy some type of St. Patrick's Day thing. I don't know. It's well, I guess we'll see. Everybody seems to be very excited about the fact that St. Patrick's Day could be more normal these days. So, all right. Anything further before we adjourn? All right, seeing nothing. Thank you so much to all of you once again for your generous availability of your time, and thank you for sharing your ideas and challenging us to just do a better job and improve our environmental sustainability here in Sault Ste. Marie, and to do some great and wonderful and innovative things. So we will see you next month. Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.